Welcome to What the Comp, the Pay Strategy Podcast, where compensation stops being confusing and starts making sense for real organizations. I'm Jennifer Loftus, National Director at Astron Solutions, and today we're talking about pay transparency and why most organizations aren't as ready as they think. Here's the truth. Most organizations think their compensation system works because no one's looking too closely. But the moment you introduce transparency, everything gets tested. And not just the structure, not just the numbers, the consistency, the logic, the story behind those decisions. So let me ask you this. If your employees could see your pay practices today, what would hold up and what wouldn't? Because that's the shift transparency creates. It doesn't change your system, it reveals it. And if you're in human resources or finance or leading an organization right now, you're probably already feeling this. Employees are asking more questions. Leadership wants to be proactive. There's pressure to get ahead of it. But here's where things start to get uncomfortable. Most organizations think this is a communication issue. It's not. It's a structure issue. Because most compensation systems were never designed to be seen. They were designed to function quietly. And those are two very different things. So why does this happen? Why do organizations feel confident until transparency becomes part of the conversation? There are a few patterns that we see over and over again. Let's explore. Most organizations didn't sit down and design a compensation strategy. It evolved. Think about how decisions get made. A hire needed to happen quickly. Someone got a pay adjustment to stay. A promotion created a new pay level. Each decision made sense. It solved a problem. It moved things forward. But let me ask you, at what point do those decisions become a system? Or do they? Because over time, those individual decisions don't always align. And what you end up with isn't a strategy. It's a history. And honestly, we see this all the time with organizations we work with. And it works until someone starts asking questions. Why do I make less than the new hire? Can we give them a counteroffer? Why does my promoted direct report make $5,000 less a year than me? The second pattern is reliance on managers. Organizations will say, we trust our managers, and trust matters. It's critical. It should be there. But here's the question. Are your managers equipped to handle compensation conversations? Have they been trained to explain pay, to navigate equity concerns, to handle difficult questions? Or are they figuring it out in real time? Because when that happens, you don't just get variation, you get inconsistency. Biases creep in, and inconsistency is what erodes trust. The third issue is legacy decisions. people hired under different conditions, different leadership, different urgency, different markets. And those decisions stay. So now you have employees in similar roles with very, very different pay stories. And here's the question. If those employees compared notes, would the differences make sense? Or would they feel random? Because once transparency enters the picture, those differences don't stay hidden. Here's the key point. Transparency doesn't create problems. It reveals them. So what do you do? Because this isn't theoretical anymore. This is happening now. And depending on where your organization is, you don't need to do everything at once. But you do need to start. So step 1, pressure test your salary ranges. Starting Monday, take a closer look at your salary ranges and ask, can your managers explain them? Do they guide decisions? Would they hold up if employees saw them? Because what we often see are ranges that look good on paper, but don't work in practice. And if your ranges aren't usable, they won't survive transparency. Step 2, clarify your philosophy. Starting Monday, ask, how do we pay? And listen carefully to the answer. If the answer is, it depends, or worse yet, I don't know, that's your signal. You need clarity on the following. 1, where you sit in the market. 2, what drives pay decisions. 3, how performance, tenure, and skills are balanced. Because without that clarity, you get inconsistent outcomes. Step 3, fix your structure before doing any messaging. Starting Monday, focus on structure before messaging. It's tempting to jump to communication, talking points, rollout plans, FAQs. But communication won't fix a system that isn't working. Because transparency isn't about explaining your system, it's about having one that holds up when it's explained. Starting Monday, start preparing your managers. Because transparency doesn't fail in strategy, it fails in conversations. Managers are the front line. And if they avoid conversations, give unclear answers, or say different things, that's when trust breaks down. So give them clear language, simple frameworks, real examples. Because if they don't understand it, they won't be able to explain it. So here's where we land. Pay transparency isn't optional anymore. The question is your compensation strategy ready? And for most organizations, this isn't about needing more data. It's about building a structure that can hold up under visibility. Because if your system works only when no one's looking too closely, it's not a system. If this is something you're starting to see or starting to question, you're not alone. We're having this conversation every day with organizations trying to figure out why things feel off, even when they're doing a lot right. Especially as we head into conversations around SHRM 26 in Orlando this June, where the topic keeps coming up again and again. I'll be speaking there, and we'll be at the Astron booth, continuing these exact conversations in real time. So if you're going to be at SHRM 26, stop by and mention the podcast. We'd genuinely love to meet you and hear what you're seeing in your organization. And if it's helpful, we're always happy to share what we're seeing and what's working. Thanks for listening to What the Comp. If this made you think, please send it to someone who's dealing with the same challenge. Because if your compensation system only works when no one's asking questions, it's not a system, it's a liability. This is What the Comp.